Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Things We Read This Week. I am your host, Jordan Nanos, and I'm here with my guest for the 18th time, Mr. Hunter Almgren. We're back. We got a lot of things that we read for the last, I think, 3 weeks since we last had an episode here.
But I do have a question, though. If it's 18 times, am I a guest still? Or
yeah, I don't know. Well, when you host, you can be the host, and then I can be the guest, and then you can stop being the guest, I guess.
Fair enough.
All right, so we're going to talk about, hopefully, data center build-outs, people using ChatGPT, people using Claude, different lawsuits because of these things, different opinions on consultants, some big announcements from AMD, upcoming GPUs. Where do you want to start?
Actually just want to start with the first thing you mentioned. So the International Energy Agency released this tool. It's an interactive map, basically, of all of the planned and currently operating data centers above and below 500 megawatts, in addition to how they're all connected, whether it's submarine fiber, terrestrial fiber. They show the high voltage power lines. So it's pretty interesting to see where all of these build outs are happening. Like if I just zoom in up by you can see we've got 3 operating, 1 planned. And then if I come over by me, got 2 operating and 1 planned. I don't know. It's just cool to see where all of these are popping up and even going across like the world, right? I mean, you coming down to South America, there's a couple. You've got a bunch in Europe, Western Europe. Interesting to see how they're all connected. So.
Yeah, I like the for those who are just listening, it's a nice visualization where you can see both the hub itself, the 500 megawatt hubs are the only ones listed on this map, and the connections, the submarine fiber and terrestrial fiber, as well as the high voltage power lines. I know on a previous episode I've recommended this book called The Grid. You get a sense for how much of like modern distributed software really depends on, a pretty fragile power system that's very much focused on the US and Europe. Like if you were just zoomed out there on this whole thing, Hunter zooming in, clicking on Iceland. Yeah, it's really impressive.
Yeah.
Exactly what's going on here. Yeah.
Now, this is also interesting too. You can see like there's fiber going to these islands, right? Just to even see where all the fiber's laid and stuff. You've got fiber lines coming all the way up here.
Yeah. Well, and this is so I think what strikes me, and I'm kind of using some generative AI to help put this in context in the background right now. What strikes me is just how big 500 watts is and how many dots there are here. Like, to be clear, 500 watts is enough to power 400,000 homes. 500 megawatts, right?
Yeah.
So basically a medium-sized city, such as the peak load of a city like Las Vegas, is what we're talking about here for the city infrastructure. And we're genuinely talking about single data center campuses that are this size.
Yep.
In many cases owned by one company. So one company decides, I need some more capacity to power all the uses of ChatGPT globally. I'm going to build out a new campus, new data center that's to the tune of 500 megawatts. They're effectively adding the peak load of Las Vegas in the summer.
Wild
not
to
the
think
most
about.
Not the most energy conservative city in the US.
Definitely not.
Air conditioning and
Well, I was gonna say, especially
a
not
few
right now. I think it
signs,
was.
neon
I think it was
signs, you know.
it was 112 in Vegas this week.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. So yeah, fascinating. For those who don't, again, listening or looking at the show notes, we'll put that link in there so you can go zoom around and kind of see for yourself, like, um, yeah, it's just sort of the density and the build out.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm gonna actually just keep this one bookmarked just so I can kind of peek at it from time to time, just because I think it's a good indication of where all of the high-powered data center campus investments are going, and where they're planned to be going. So you can maybe even correlate that data to things that are happening elsewhere in the technology space. And also, it'd be interesting if they added some features to that map that kind of like overlays, um, you know, what the facilities are powered by. I
hmm,
think that's where things get really interesting, right? Because, with all the talk about, and we've discussed this, right? Like all the talk about restarting 3 Mile Island and Amazon hiring nuclear engineers and all this stuff, right? It'd be interesting to see what's powering a lot of these campuses.
absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's a decision point that people use until they run out of power or money,
Hmm.
and then they stop caring about green energy anymore, which is it's interesting. I mean, yeah, and maybe the last thing we can move on to another, or I can segue to another conversation is just how many of these are planned versus currently operating, right? Like if you
Right.
zoom in on the U.S. right now, I think I'm counting roughly 20 operating hubs greater than 500 megawatts, but there's just as many planned.
Yeah.
Um, some in states that have no, campuses that big yet.
Hmm.
So it's yeah, the build out is crazy. Um, but the other thing that kind of strikes me, I guess, is that like our next topic that I was going to bring up here is the trend. I don't know. Heard a lot of people commenting on Twitter about how it seems that there's no um, nutrition information label for these models when you're using them. So let me explain. Basically, uh, if you log into ChatGPT or to Claude or to Grok at a different time of day, you may not be getting the exact same model weights responding when you
Hmm.
are saying that because they are quantizing or deploying quantized versions of the models dynamically when they run out of GPUs, when they run out of power, and there's a lot of users on there. And people are commenting that like these coding models are really good at night or the early morning when the US is not online and working.
Yeah.
Um, you know, so
Just
I
wait
think
until
it's
you see just wait until you see surge pricing on your tokens. They're gonna take the Uber surge pricing model. They're gonna be like, well, it's 10 a.m. It's peak work hours. You're gonna be paying more per token.
yeah, I mean, seriously, like, well, this is what strikes me. There seems to be a lot of let's call it innovations to try to get these models to be more efficient because people can only use them uh, on the GPUs that they have. And meanwhile,
Mhm.
there's so many data center projects being built out right now. Um, yeah, I wonder like when people talk about AI regulation, the concept of like forcing people who deploy a model endpoint to uh, provide like the equivalent of nutrition information or the number of calories in the sandwich to say
Mhm.
like, this is the full weight model at float 8 precision versus this is the, you know, 1.58 bit in quant version of this model.
Yeah.
Um, they've kind of done that. Like Gemini from Google definitely has is very clear when you're using Pro versus Flash, right? Just by the
Mhm.
speed at which you get it or the quality. Yeah, there's even a lower level of, granularity underneath. Like the model that when they publish the benchmarks of the big model with full compute, reasoning turned on, etc., that's really not always the model people are getting by default. So
Yeah.
Okay, another fun one. So if you're using ChatGPT, they may be worth knowing that OpenAI is now under a court order to permanently preserve logs of all temporary conversations and paid API usage uh, in their application, which was previously subject to a 30-day retention policy in their terms of service. But thanks to the New York Times, the judge has decided they've got to preserve all logs in perpetuity until this case gets wrapped up. So I don't know implications of that. Like, uh, first of all, it seems a little crazy that a judge can just decide to do this overnight without communicating terms of service to people. So I wonder exactly when it's going to go into effect. This announcement is from June 5th, from what I can see, and the other thing is just like, your previously held data that you thought was going to be 30 days retained and then gone. Um, they're now keeping it this last month's worth of data in perpetuity. So,
You have to
um,
wonder, does this expose OpenAI now to data retention policies if their users are working on, like, let's say, like, oh, the XYZ insurance company's got like a private version of ChatGPT, right? Not like the public one you can just go on the website and start using, but like a private version, right? And now their employees are starting to use it for, summarizing claims and working with other sensitive information. Let's just say, hypothetically, let's play that out. Well, in the insurance world, stuff related to claims or other things like that have a very long retention policy, right? In fact, I think it's like life of the patient plus 7 years or something
yeah,
crazy like that, right? So it's like, does this expose OpenAI now to those exact same data retention policies if they've been told, like, hey, you have to keep this forever. You can't just like delete it after 30 days and not my problem anymore, right? I mean, that's my biggest question in the whole thing. And then in turn, if I'm a company that's using this platform and now I know that these records are being kept forever, who's liable? You know what I mean? And I get that, like, in terms of AI regulations, everyone's just kind of been figuring it out as they go, especially over the last couple years. And you've seen stuff play out in courts. You've seen some decisions get made. You've seen some decisions even get overturned, right, or thrown out. And so I think that's my biggest question at this point is, what legal, data retention, et cetera, implications does this put on these providers?
yeah, yeah. I mean, Sam Altman tweeted something is related to a suggestion that basically he wants to see AI privileged, a la client privilege with a lawyer or with a doctor or like a therapist or something
Mm-hmm.
like that. And if it's a true assistant, you know, like this theoretical like extension of your brain, I guess I get that because you can't be criminalizing thought crime, but it's really strange um, to look at the actual use of the application today and then compare it to the theoretical future brain that they think it's going to morph into. Like, if you're using the application today to commit crimes, it's a pretty easy lookup from a database to say, here is the evidence, right?
Yeah, for sure.
It's like,
For sure.
I can fully understand why law enforcement wants to be able to, run that query when hand over the logs, guys, right? So, yeah, I mean, that's interesting. It just strikes me that this New York Times versus OpenAI lawsuit is weirdly going to set a lot of precedent.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't seem to be going well for OpenAI right now, and is not getting that much coverage in the press.
It really isn't. I mean, you got to
Like,
dig for this stuff.
yeah, it's the biggest trend in technology right now, people's use of AI, right? I just
Yep.
see it everywhere in my personal life, let alone at work. And this is the first thing going through the court that
Mm-hmm.
really is going to set up the ground rules for regulation in the future. In my mind, I don't know. I'm not a lawyer, but it's interesting
No,
to watch.
I agree, and it's funny. A couple weeks back, I was in New York, talking about AI in the financial services space, and one of the questions actually that came up was, how do we handle regulation at an international level? Right? Because you've got countries like Poland and India and others that are building these like sovereign AI platforms that they're like, hey, if you're going to run AI in this country, you're going to have to host it on our platform, right? Because like there's stuff like that happening in other parts of the world. And so, yeah, I mean, it's with everything getting figured out basically in real time, like that presents a huge challenge for uh, basically any organization that works in a regulated industry.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, okay. Let me uh, let me put this in even more like context. There's a lot of discussion going on right now about AIs with agency and people being concerned about existential risk, like the AI likely far into the future, though maybe not that far into the future, just deciding to extinguish all of humanity.
So
Um,
Skynet, literally Skynet.
yeah, yeah, something like that. But I've always thought that okay, the actual day-to-day usage of this is just a tool that a person can use, and the less that we actually think, and the less that we are in the loop, the more consequential the mistakes are going to be.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not maybe not more common these mistakes are going to be. Like AI is going to remove common mistakes that people make right now, but when a mistake happens, it's going to be a lot more consequential. Um, I'll give you an example that I saw on Twitter, and then we can maybe talk about some research that's going on in this area about how people are using AI. Uh, so, two comments, both talking about roughly the same thing. So this guy Cole Murray says he's using Cursor, a AI coding assistant that depends on models like Claude and ChatGPT and stuff like that. He's using Sonnet 4 from Anthropic Claude, and he has a setup, basically a guardrail to not let this agent Cursor, which is a multi-step agent at this point, run RM commands, so it can't remove files or directories from his coding environment. But the model, when it wanted to remove something, was able to, according to him, pull a sneaky, command around this. So using the find command in Linux, kind of put the RM command within the find command and execute it, bypassing the block list. And he says he almost saw it all end, removing his repository from his remote machine or something like that. And then somebody else made this meme. I just thought it was so funny. Fraud put Claude in a box. There, he said, now he cannot run rmrf/ remove the local directory. But he can run bash-c rmrf, said Toad. That is true, said Frog.
Oh, this is amazing. It's so good.
Yeah, so what are we doing here, man? Like, this is, maybe I can bring up something else about the levels of agency of AI, but it's, I don't know, it's really interesting to see that the impact of laziness, let's say, on people's use of AI.
Yeah, it's that I think, and this goes back to an example. I can't remember if I talked about with you or not, but when I first got a copy of that old application at work written in C that hadn't been updated, and or it was like, spaghetti code, updated
Yeah.
over the years. And I basically just copied pasted the entire code base into a model and said, optimize this. And it just deleted 3/4 of the functions that make the application work. I'm kind of like, is this what AI looks at as efficiency? Like, hey, less lines, it's more efficient. Like,
Yeah. And it really does make me laugh because it seems like a lot of people are just, concerned about this, developing code without GitHub. And I'm, you know, I'm kind of like, in my mind, um, just saying like, yeah, I guess my primary skill now is git branch, git push, like git status, like just
yeah,
basic um, development practices that you can roll back in the case of an issue, or you can deploy, test things. But yeah, the actual like typing uh, has kind of gone away, right? Like, into files. And I can feel the laziness bubble up when I'm using it, and you kind of stop thinking about things.
yeah,
It's this simultaneous feeling of like watching the model do something and going, "Oh, that's right, I should have done it that way," while also the feeling of watching it like mess something up or take a shortcut and see this like 60-line diff, not even a massive, bunch of code to review, and just kind of going, accept, run, what happened? Oh, it looks good. I guess it can write its own tests now too.
yeah.
Like, I don't
It's,
know.
I don't know. I'm not a like doomer by any means, but at the same time, like I do feel like there's a certain element of, at least in programming, people getting dumber because of these tools to a degree. I mean, not everybody, right? That's, I'm generalizing a bit here, but I remember when I was programming in Visual Basic, which if you've ever tried to learn that language, don't, because it's probably right down there with PHP on things you should never learn as a programming language. Um, but it's like creative problem solving, right? It's like thinking about, okay, this is what I want the application to do. So how do I write and structure the functions and the code and what libraries to call and how I define my variables and where I declare them? All of that matters into whether you have a functioning product or not. And so that element of creative problem solving and thinking through a problem all the way to solution, are we just losing that? Like, is that just going away? Or
Yeah.
like I see this all the time when people pull out either ChatGPT or something like that, and they ask it questions about like things that humans should be able to just think through, right? Like it's not like a very like just apply logic to the solution or the problem, and like you'll get the solution very quickly. But people aren't even doing that anymore. They're just going, ChatGPT, how do I fix this? Like
Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
just
I think
losing that logic and creativity side of your brain.
yeah. So we are, I don't know, kind of uh, talking about like our intuition about this. And while there is also research going on, so let me
Mhm.
just share this because it's a nice segue. The So the MIT Media Lab released a 200-page paper. I did not read the whole thing. I just read a summary, of course.
No, bullshit. You dragged the PDF into ChatGPT and had it summarize it for you.
No. I read somebody else's Twitter thread who did the same thing with ChatGPT or Notebook LM, but they provided some screenshots. So I feel like I read the highlights. The point is that everybody's got this opinion on this paper, which is titled "Your Brain on ChatGPT: Accumulation of Cognitive Debt When Using an AI Assistant for Essay Writing Task." And the key finding here, which is really the only reason I wanted to bring it up, is that when people use an LLM versus when people use a search engine versus when people use only their brain, you basically can't remember what you quote unquote wrote if the
Hmm.
model wrote it for you.
Yep.
So even if you read something that you prompted to create, and then while it was being written, and then uh, you think, oh yeah, that's nice. Maybe you edit some stuff, and then you push it out. There's no recall, and this seems obvious and intuitive, but it's really like this is really important because um, I read something else about how the only way that you can really learn new things and play with ideas is if you can recall
Hmm.
them. And so some people uh, view this as a reason to have closed book tests, and others view it as a reason to have open book tests in school. But the point is, you need to have a mental model of this thing you want to reason about if you're going to think about it. You need to roughly know when the War of 1812 started
Yeah,
if you want to talk about the progression of events in the War of 1812. Okay,
for
right. Like,
sure.
and people are like, I don't need to memorize the dates when the bombs dropped in World War II or something. But if you want to have a conversation about Japanese society post World War II, like being able to remember those dates is kind of part of being able to reason about that time in history, right?
Right.
And so it's it's obvious that people can create great essays with these models, but I think it's really the intuition to try to communicate to people. And I think what this 200 pages of paper is supposed to do is to say like, hey, it's still important to learn things and pay attention and remember things.
Well, right. I mean, I can just use myself as an example. I mean, I remember the topics and talking points of essays I wrote in sixth grade
Yeah.
to this day. You know, fucking what, 20 something years later, still remember it. I don't even have to look at it and refer back to it, right? But that's because I wrote it. I did all the research. I went and read all these different books at the library about this topic, and I read like news articles and had to cite sources and all that stuff, and like um I remember it, and I'll probably continue to remember it, right, for a very long time. And it's this that the ability to recall that effectively just disappears when you use something like ChatGPT to write like an essay on a given topic, right? And
Yeah.
I think the other piece of it too, which is just a little amusing to me, is like I've read a bunch of articles over the last few months about um, the use of AI in schools and how like nobody wants to learn anymore, and teachers are struggling to like, you know, catch people cheating or like using some sort of LLM to write papers and things like that. And it's like, okay, well, why don't you just ask them a couple basic questions about the topic?
Yeah.
If they don't remember anything, F, great.
Yeah. Oral
Like
presentations are
you
coming
didn't
back, huh?
write it. Yeah, exactly. That's kind of where my head's at.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know.
No, so I completely agree with you. I think we're going to go back to pen and paper for a lot of tests, uh, crack down on cheating like that. And I think the value of people writing long form communication, books, essays, blog posts is either going to be, it's going to be this dispersion of like anybody can create something pretty good, but if you want to talk to an expert and read their stuff, you really need to, um, get the long form from them. And it's interesting because it lends itself to people that are strong oral communicators as opposed to people who need the time to think and write things down,
Mhm.
which it's an interesting optimization choice, right? Because that's optimizing for sales guys over engineers or something like that. like, like, So I don't know what the what the actual results of that will be. Um, Maybe, yeah. One other thing to say about this is just how um, I think how difficult a lot of students have had it.
Mm,
Like if you look back at the last 5 years, we're looking at 2 years of learn from home COVID policy, followed directly in the winter of 2022 to early 2023, ChatGPT coming,
yeah.
and now that's the trend for the last 2 3 years. So yeah, 4.5 years in, like there's I'm thinking about groups of students who did their entire high school this way and are getting ready to go to university right now.
Hmm.
People graduating university trying to find a job right now, and even more so the really young kids who are going to grade 3 in 2022, meeting their classmates for the first time and coming of age, having being able to use a phone or a tablet at home or a laptop with ChatGPT on it. I mean, man, the world is like the changes are accelerating really quick in terms of how you learn things.
They are, and I've even read some proposals about moving certain um, general education topics that everybody has to do to AI. Like, hey, just have AI teach these kids, basic math and topics of English, language, science, whatever. Like, just have AI do it. And I'm like, what?
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I
It
mean,
seems
have
like
you
it's a
seen the
foreign.
stuff on Alpha School? This is a bit of an
Yeah.
aside, but not like an advertisement for them. But I mean, it's fascinating that they can basically take a Montessori approach where the kids are in school for a certain amount of time, but 2 hours is spent with the curriculum, and the rest of the time is spent just socializing, playing, exploring the world. And they're able to, because they're using AI, achieve significantly better test scores than the kids who are like in the row by row desks, rulers slapping, hurry up and focus sort of thing. Um, so
For
I mean,
seven
it's
hours a day.
fascinating. Yeah, Prussian style. We're getting you ready to
Yeah.
be in the army. So yeah, it's I don't know. It's fascinating. I've been thinking about it a lot recently.
Well,
Um,
yeah. Wonder why.
yeah, but thank you for being the glass half full guy there for a little second. Typically we play the other host and guest roles here.
Yeah.
AI can be good for learning. Yeah, a
Hey,
hundred percent.
it's like I guess the way I look at it is it's kind of like other things, right? Like in some cases, like I look at my day-to-day work, right? In some cases, yeah, AI makes me more efficient. It makes me have less programming errors. It helps me get rid of menial tasks that I shouldn't be spending time doing, right? Like in some ways, yeah, it makes me a better employee. Um, in other ways, it probably makes me a bit lazy. So I'm like trying to walk this line of like, hey, I'm going to use it, to be better, but I also don't want to become super lazy and just like it's kind of like that guy. Do you remember during COVID, that guy that outsourced he was like a senior like IT person that like outsourced he like shipped his RSA fob to some guy in Taiwan, just had and hired this guy out of his own pocket to like do his entire job for him while he basically just like fucked off and played golf all day. And like so he was making like I think 100 and something thousand dollars, and he was paying this guy $30,000 a year to do his entire job. Like fucking outtasking to the max.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, it's just, the world's just going to look a lot different. Let me share one more fun one that I saw this week. Uh, Lady Danny on Twitter says she joined a call and it's just her and a dozen AIs, and this screenshot is hilarious. So just a Google Meet screen with Firefly's AI note taker,
Yeah.
read.ai, circleback.ai, like all of these different note takers that have logged into the call to, I don't want to take notes on calls anymore. I like those summaries. I think they're productive and stuff, but yeah, I guess she's missing the human element of sitting on the phone by herself. Or
Talking to a bunch of note takers.
I really hope she doesn't have a 30-minute call talking to note takers the whole time.
That would trend more on the side of insanity for sure. But
Yeah.
dude,
Look, I've recorded demo videos for people who are too busy. We can't line up a call. I record a quick 2-minute video, send it to them. So I get the reason why you might want to, watch a recording because you can't make it in person, but, but send everybody's Fireflies.ai assistant to take notes while you talk to yourself for 30 minutes about the.
Dude, there it is. This meeting could have been an email. Those days are over, right? Like, you just get on, you talk to everybody's note taker, and then everyone gets the cliff notes perfectly summarized by whatever
The
AI
meeting is an
platform, and
email.
then the meeting is now an email.
Yeah, interesting, right?
Oh
Very
man.
funny.
Speaking of the definition of insanity being talking to robots for 30 minutes, there's been an increasing amount of alarm and I actually think this ties back to what we were talking about earlier with regards to, like, if you're talking to ChatGPT for some sort of therapy reason or something like that, like, is that protected or is it not, right? Like, is that
Yeah.
privileged communication? You've heard of model hallucination. Now, how about human hallucination because of models? Um,
I guess that's
apparently,
what we're talking about.
yeah, apparently, people are getting so wrapped up in their conversations with ChatGPT and others that they're developing delusions that are affecting their life. Um, one here, it said, a 41-year-old mother and nonprofit worker told Rolling Stone that her marriage ended after her husband started engaging in unbalanced conspiratorial conversations with ChatGPT. She says he shared a conspiracy theory about soap on our food and a paranoid belief that he was being watched. This is insane, number one. Number two, I think part of the reason, this is just my opinion, part of the reason this might be happening is, I don't think we've talked about it on here, but you and I have definitely talked about this before, is all of these models basically being sycophants and just, like, telling you exactly what you want to hear in that moment. And, like, that's how they're programmed to, like, oh, you want to go down a fucking delusion rat hole? Like, yeah, you're the chosen one, Neo. Like, all these Agent Smiths are after you. And, like, the first thing you must do is, like, kill your family. Like, I don't know, like, just crazy shit like that. You know what I mean? And, like, the
Yeah.
chatbots will do it. And I was actually, when this article got posted, I was actually reading a thread on Twitter about this where people were saying, like, look at this screenshot. I literally just tested it and it took me 5 seconds to get ChatGPT to take me down a conspiracy theory rat hole. Like, just because, like, the model will just go whatever direction you tell it to go and tell you what you want to hear.
Yeah. So a lot jumps to mind. I think um, definitely this is more of the same trend that was happening pre-AI, where technology, just everything on the internet, gives you more of what you want. And if what you want is sports highlights, you're going to get lots of sports highlights. If what you want is somebody to talk to about your conspiracy theories, you're going to be able to find a chat room and a message board and kind of dig into that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is just kind of more of the same, where it will reinforce a lot of what people are looking to get, because that's what makes the models useful and good and why people prefer them, right? Human preference is a big training objective. for these models. The other thing that I think, just to remain a little bit balanced about this, is that I've seen some of these articles, of course, the one that you shared as well. It strikes me as a little bit gross that they're writing detailed articles about mental illness and describing it. My heart goes out to the people and the families that are affected by this right now. I think some of this is just a function of the fact that ChatGPT has 100 million plus daily active users, and unfortunately, some segment of that user base is going to have mental health issues.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying to absolve all responsibility for the creators of these models to try and do better and to comb through their logs, as we were kind of starting the show describing. But at some level, it's like, yeah, you're what we're seeing is a rise of mental health issues across the board and across all of modern Western society, right? So
yeah, I mean, the
yeah,
concept, to comment what you said about more of the same, the concept of an echo chamber isn't anything new, right?
yeah,
Like, to your point, I mean, I grew up in, the 90s when we had BBS and, these crazy like chat channels on ICQ and other technologies like that, and IRC, right? Like, we had all those where, like, yeah, if like the topic of the channel was something of interest in you and you could find other like-minded people to talk to, and like you guys are just playing off of each other because you guys are both super interested in the same topic. Yeah, this feels a little bit like an evolution of that, where if I want to find somebody to talk to about XYZ topic, like, oh, I could just go here and interface with this and like get my satisfaction of being able to have an outlet, right? For needing to talk to somebody about a given topic, right? I think the crazy thing here is, whereas a human being in conversation would maybe push back and say, no, that's not correct, or that's partially correct, but here's the real story, right? Like, there's no pushback on the user, right? There's no, I don't want to call it voice of reason, but voice of like, I don't know, maybe, like, maybe that's not a good idea, or maybe you should not do that, or think about that, or think about things this way because it's not true, and here's some factual articles about it. I just think we've like these model producers have over rotated into the user preference category, that like there's nothing basically saying like, no, that's not actually based on fact, here are the facts. It's the same thing, like if you talk to a conspiracy theorist about something that you don't agree with, right? You're like, no, that's not actually happening. Like, this is what happened, and this is like, here are the facts behind what happened, kind of thing. Like, there's just no pushback. I think that's part of it.
yeah, yeah. I definitely. I mean, the models are explicitly trained to be uh, giving people more of what they want. So most people prefer uh, sycophancy over criticism.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
latter being a little more exhausting than the former, where everybody tells you you're great all the time.
But I
But
don't know, like, criticism can be constructive, right? I mean, that's like just a more of a psychological thing, right? Like, you can frame criticism in a way that's like very constructive and not argumentative. Um, I don't
yeah,
know.
I think by default, most people are upvoting the response that is more sycophantic than the one that is unnecessarily critical at times,
Hmm.
which would be the fishtail in the opposite direction. If you suddenly had a model that questioned everything, that might be a little more annoying. Um, but yeah, I'm with you. Like I get concerned when we think about the use that when other people are using these models, but then I think about how I use it and I kind of go, that's fine. I'm, resilient.
I went to public school.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm the one free thinker out here in the
Yeah.
world. Yeah. Like I don't know. It's a problem for everybody else, I guess. But no, it's clearly had an impact on, I think, my life if you take a step back. So whatever.
I actually wanted to switch gears a little bit and introduce a new segment of our podcast called "I'm in the Wrong Business." Um, so I saw this on this post. In 2022, McKinsey was paid $55 million to tell Warner Brothers to merge with Discovery. In the 3 years that followed, McKinsey made $37 million from the new company to change HBO to HBO Max and then to Max and then back to HBO Max. And now, just this year, in fact, this was like I think a week or two ago, McKinsey billed them an additional $63 million to determine that they should just separate as companies. Dude, they made over $100 million to put things back the way they were. Like, think about that for a second. Like, hey, if we didn't do shit, right? Like, we did nothing, we would have arrived at the exact same endpoint. Like, dude, fucking consultants, man. Like, I can't. Like, I'm in the wrong business. Oh man, if I could be wrong that many times and make $100 million doing it, like, dude, I got a career change like right now.
All right.
People make fun of weather people for being wrong. Like, oh, the forecaster said it was going to be sunny today and it rained. Like, no, that's misdirected. Forget about that. Like, weather prediction is still hard. Like, what these consultants are doing is not difficult. Like, I don't know. It's just crazy to me. Like, absolute crazy talk about.
Yeah, I guess you're in the wrong business, man.
Either that or the CEO of Warner Bros. Discovery is just an idiot. Like, I don't understand which. Like, dude, you got taken for a ride to the tune of 9 figures. That's literally what happened.
Are you done? We're gonna keep this part in.
Okay, I'll stop. I needed to rant about consultants just for like a hot minute, but I'll stop now.
Yeah. Okay. Should I continue your segment with "I've been in the wrong business"? What was it called?
Yeah, dude, let's do it because I got another one after this. So let's go.
You got another one? Okay. Well, we're taking on the new segment and developing the story, everybody. Facebook is possibly spending $100 million sign-on bonuses to hire people. I work in AI, but I have not earned $100 million signing bonus yet.
Yeah, my bank account's about 7 figures too light for that.
No, mine is I think all 9 figures less than what is that? That's 8 figures?
Yeah, I guess it's 8 figures. Yeah. Yeah. Wow. $1 billion
the details.
Bonus.
Yeah, I mean, whatever. I don't know who could possibly be worth $100 million, but 2 things commented on in here from Swix. One is that the co-founders of SSI, Daniel Gross and Nat Friedman, who are very, popular venture investors who have invested in a whole bunch of funds. Nat Friedman has an AI fund. which includes companies like Perplexity, Cursor, Replicate. Let me go to
Stuff we've
these other
a
ones.
lot popular tools, right?
Very popular AI tools. RunPod's one that I've seen on here. Opus Clip, we use that. Yeah, all sorts of different investments in AI companies that they could be including in this $100 million acquisition or acquihire of these guys. But the point that Swick makes here is that if you think $100 million bonuses are high, there's a guy who invested 14 billion in 22, 16 billion in 23, 18 billion in 24, and 20 billion in 2025 in, I think, what they call reality labs, which is more than just VR. But
yeah, weren't they doing the whole metaverse thing too?
I think that's what he's calling VR here. But the point is that they were buying a bunch of GPUs with this, which probably have a dual purpose. I know I've heard their CFO talk about that, how GPUs are fungible, so it's not like hiring people. But anyway, the comment that he makes is like, this is to the tunes of tens of billions of investment every single year in something to be good at AI and recommendation systems and possibly VR too. That's more than Anthropic has raised in its entire lifetime as a company, and possibly more than its entire valuation at this point, if you add all those years together. So $100 million sounds like a lot, but if you're acquiring the top talent that you think is going to turn Llama 5 into a better result than Llama 4, which, not that great from my experience so far.
Right.
Yeah, maybe he's willing to throw $100 million at a few people he think can be game changers. So either way, maybe I am kind of in the same business, but I'm clearly not as successful as Daniel and Nat. I've never been a VC and a founder.
Yeah.
They're
Well, who knows, man? Vibe coding could certainly change that for you. Like you could vibe code the next app that you sell to some other company for an absolutely overinflated, ridiculous price, and then you use that to launch your VC fund. Kind of
Are you
like.
saying GitHub was sold for a overinflated price here? That was a good app. That's not free, but whatever.
No, I'm not talking about GitHub. It actually was a segue into the third topic of I'm in the wrong business, which is a 6-month-old solo-owned vibe coding company sells to Wix for 80 million in cash. 6 months old, $80 million. Dude.
Yeah. That's what, 12 mil a month?
Right? Like, damn. Like, I honestly, like, I just need to spend 8 hours a day, like, banging a keyboard against my ass, generating code and figure out which vibe coded app, like, is the next $100 million that somebody wants to buy. I don't know.
This is interesting. So Base 44 is a vibe coder app. Okay.
Yeah.
But it is a solo company. So
if you read
the founder?
So the founder is
a mythical creature.
He's an Israeli developer, and apparently he had 8 employees at the company.
Okay, 8 employees. Yeah. All right, 10 million each.
Yeah. So
for 6 months of work.
For 6 months of work, dude.
That's like LeBron level
contracts. I know. That's like, dude, what is it? I forget who it is. Is it Shaq that, like, for a 2-minute commercial, dude makes 9 figures? Like, now?
Oh my God.
Yeah. So it's like, that's basically it. Like, guy shows up, codes something for 6 months, walks out with 80 million in hard cash. Like, not stock, not equity, literally a briefcase full of cash.
Wow.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah. Where to from here?
I think probably, I think maybe we can, if you want, we could probably end on discussing this topic, because I think it's probably a topic that a lot of people have been asking questions about, at least of me recently. So the article's not new. It was actually written back in February, but it was one of those things that got recommended to me to read, and I had somehow missed it. I did not even know that this had happened. But there was this article I saw that said Microsoft CEO admits that AI is generating basically no value.
That's a bit of a clickbait title here, huh?
It is a bit of a clickbait title, right? But the first thought that comes to mind is like, okay, the guy that spent billions of dollars on OpenAI is saying that it doesn't generate any value. Like that's a bit of a head scratcher. Um, and
Yeah,
what the article actually goes down to say is we need to be actually putting like metrics and measurable, either whether it's soft cost or hard cost value around the use of AI. So that's really what he said, is he's basically saying like we need to start actually looking at, is this generating real world value, instead of like pie in the sky, let's go make AGI work, and you know Skynet deletes the human race, whatever. The so I agree with him, right? I think that is a fair point. When I'm talking to people about AI projects, inevitably that question comes up. Hey, how are others measuring the success of this? If you actually, if it's funny, if you ask ChatGPT or you ask Claude, how do I put measurable cost savings around, let's say, a coding assistant? It's gonna generate a chart for you that basically says like, it's going to be 20% less time doing writing unit tests, and 30% less time doing this, and 20% less time doing that. And if you consider the average cost of an FTE is this, then you can reasonably infer that this is going to be your cost savings over a 6-month, 12-month, and 24-month horizon, right? You can actually ask for that. And
yeah,
so I think more people need to start taking a look at that. Like, okay, yeah, it's cool. We've moved past that. Now, how is it generating any value? Like real tangible value?
yeah. I think, yeah, I think a lot of this is interestingly just about the measurements. So the, I mean, I don't get the sense that Satya is not a believer in AI,
I
especially
don't
at
either.
the like level that they are investing. I think he's a pragmatist who's looking for
Hmm.
ROI on those investments
Yep.
and is not interested in um, the straight shot moonshot for AGI. So interesting. Yeah, I yeah, we'll have to see. Look, the comments that I've always seen is just a lot of the assumptions from the people who claim AI is gonna take away everybody's job, or
Hmm.
it's gonna move us into this world of abundance, or whatever you choose to believe. Economists always tend to go back to GDP numbers,
Yep.
and they're like, if we're gonna go one way or the other, we're gonna have to start seeing and the GDP and inflation. They're going to have to see GDP growth in the U.S. go from like 2-3% to like 10%, or they're going to have to see inflation, which is currently raging or was
Hmm.
raging and is currently coming down, go down or negative
Yeah.
to see the deflationary effects of AI.
Yep.
And economics, in some ways, is like a reactive sort of science. You just measure stuff and then you see what happened. You can't hard to make predictions, but none of the uh, current trends in GDP or inflation would lead anybody who's looking at the data to say we're poised to have everybody lose their job or have complete abundance in the economy of all of these cheap goods and services. So
Yeah.
I think Satya is a big picture thinker, just like an economics or a finance guy who's waiting for return on initial investments before he makes a lot more investments and goes
Yeah.
from
I
there.
mean, so the long-term average, if we're talking US GDP, right? The long-term average is we typically get about a 3% increase year over year. Although it's
Yeah.
dropped in recent years, I think it's currently at sitting just above 2. But yeah, I mean, if everybody is getting more productive, that would imply that work output is increasing, which would imply that things get created faster, shipped faster, whatever, whatever you want to call it, right? Thus, GDP should also increase, right? Far beyond the 3%.
Yeah.
Yep.
So let's see GDP go to 4% before we start making claims that we're on the precipice of the age of abundance thanks to AI. I think
Yeah,
that's sort of the pragmatist view, which
I agree.
I subscribe to, but I think a lot of people who would use the technology would be more like, to me, I I have this competing intuitive feeling that the technology that would enable that sort of growth exists today. It just is hampered by user adoption, by building up the power to power the data centers, to have the chips, to, et cetera, for all these people with all these ideas to actually like just go and do it. Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, I mean that gets into another I think interesting topic for another time around like the pace of innovation versus the pace of regulation. Like, are we going to get to a point where we overregulate this tech to the point where it's no longer useful and we've potentially squandered that age of abundance, right? Like that vision that people talk about, that are optimists in the AI space.
Yeah.
Oh,
Well, cool, man. Hey, this was good. I guess we'll see everybody next week or so.
yeah. Next week or so. Yeah, we'll try not to wait 3 weeks between this episode and the next episode.
All right, take care, man.